So he funded the new waterworks, he financed the sewer system, he built the post office, he contributed $250,000 to build Borough Hall, among a lot of other things. It's widely speculated that during the Great Depression, he anonymously paid off grocery store bills for townspeople.
Hey everyone, it's Anthony with Bucks Co Living. Welcome back to the podcast. Today I have John Whitenight of the Grundy Museum and Jameson Gilpatrick of the Grundy Foundation. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming today. It is such a pleasure. I've been a lifelong Bristol resident. Margaret Grundy, the library, was my library growing up. I love the area. I love seeing what's going on. But again, I have to admit it, I've never been to the museum. I don't know what the foundation does. This is why you're here. This is why we wanted you to hear, to show people, don't just walk by the Grundy Museum. Don't just pass by the Grundy Foundation. Learn about it. So Jameson and John, thank you so much for coming along.
Well, thank you, Anthony. Thank you so much for having us today, and please feel free to call me Jamie.
All right, Jamie, sorry. Jamie and I have been friends for years. I was just trying to be cordial and friendly, and Jimmy's probably laughing at us already. But, John, thank you for coming to the podcast. John, let's quick talk about the Grundy Museum. John, you've been a lover of Victorian history for so long. Tell me what you do at the Grundy Museum.
Well,
a lot.
A lot. Everything from dusting to hanging interior shutters to changing light bulbs, coming up with new programs, managing staff. I could go on and on and on, Paul. You know, it's like a little bit of everything. And what I do is my main objective is to really put the museum on the map, and indirectly or even directly to put Bristol on the map as well. So that is one of the big goals.
Awesome. Yeah, we do see the museum as being a part of the economic drive, a driver for Bristol, right? We focus on partnerships with the restaurants, the King George, Eatery, Drift, and we do push visitors to enjoy Bristol, go out to eat, go to the theater, really enjoy all that Bristol has to offer as part of coming to the museum. That's an important part of their experience, and we certainly want to play our role in making sure that Bristol benefits from that.
Jamie, you had to mention the theater. I love that. That's, your old plug. You're not working for them anymore, but you were director before.
Correct.
You came back, you left, you came back to Bristol.
I did.
Bristol's got its hooks in you forever, which is true. What brought you back? First off, you worked in nonprofit for so long.
I have, yes.
And then you go you're such a lover of the arts. New York to Broadway to Bristol. How does that come back?
Well, so I did run the Bristol Riverside Theater for several years. What a lot of people don't know is that the foundation actually owns all of the theater property, and back in 1984, actually originally purchased that building and renovated it to actually create Bristol Riverside Theater. And on top of the annual grants to the theater, we also, ever since that first day, have charged the theater $1 in rent per year. And that is because the foundation believes in what theater can do for a community and believes in theater as an economic driver. And so as part of that process, the theater makes a presentation to the board every year, the status of the theater and its future planning and so on and so forth. And I, of course, did that in my role when I ran the theater. And so the board got to know me in that process. And so, when Gene and the board were talking about his retirement and, transition planning and so on, and succession and so on and so forth, my name came up, and, as things happen, and here I am. So I'm very grateful for the opportunity. I'm really glad to be back in Bristol. It's a great community. I don't know of any other town that loves its community as much as Bristolians do, and it's really great to be a part of that. But I also really love being a part of and the opportunity to lead the foundation and the museum and the library. It's such a unique story of how this all started, where this legacy began, and the opportunity to continue that legacy and carry it forward.
It was sort of like an audition, basically. You know,
In a sense,
now
sure.
you're filling big shoes.
I didn't know it at the time, but you could certainly look back and call it that now.
Yeah, you're filling big shoes. Now Eugene Williams was with for 22 years, right?
Yeah, he was. Yeah,
I
he
mean,
was executive director for a very long time.
that's a a big shoes to fill. And
Yes.
how do you and John play off of each other? You know, John is more of material, like the Victorian, the preserving the history of the not artifacts, but our history of the
Yeah.
Victorian age. And
Yeah.
you are more arts. How do you guys work together in that
Well,
aspect?
so there's really there's really three of us, right? There's the library, the museum, and then the foundation. And the foundation, I see the foundation having there's really two parts to the foundation. There's our grant making, right? We give grants to local nonprofits. We support the community in that way. And then the foundation also provides the support services for the library and the museum, right? So we manage the facilities, HR, finances, develop fundraising, marketing, right? We provide all those support services. So working with John and Megan, John runs the museum, Megan runs the library, and I look to them as the experts in those fields to make that happen, and we support that work and do everything we can to make sure they have all the resources that they need to excel in their roles. And so I'm very fortunate. John is very much the expert in his field, as is Megan. And so we are very lucky that we have a great team in place that allows us to have great vision. They both have very clear vision for the path forward for what they want to do. And my job is to help them get there.
Nice.
Yeah, I look at it. I go back to the Grundys and the Ridgeways, because, as you know, the Ridgeways were bona fide Quakers, since the 1690s, and then in come the Grundys, and they were nonconformists, and also they embraced Quakerism to a certain level, and I just feel that within this organization, no, we're not Quakers, but we kind of have this Quaker attitude of collaboration, consensus. Consensus is a very important thing. So the other C word in there is communication. So you cannot have consensus and collaboration without communication. And that's what we do. So we are aware of what's going on across the campus. And we're there, and the other word is the common cause. God, I'm just so alliterative today. But it is the common cause that we want it all to happen together and be cohesive. There I go again.
There we go.
Now, there's two parts with, you were talking about three parts actually, but the museum and the library was named after Joseph R. Grundy's sister.
Correct.
Yes.
A lot of people don't know that. And Bristol boys, I didn't know that growing up. I thought, when I was young, I thought it was his wife. But they've kind of collaborated, and they had this whole mission to save Bristol. Have you seen that evolve since then?
Well, I think it's very interesting. So Joseph and Margaret were the only children of William and Mary, and neither married, neither had children, but they both loved their community dearly, and it was very important to them. But their approach to that was very different. So Joe took his father's business, and what I think John knows this better, I think quadrupled it, right? Quintupled. So built his fortune and then turned around and gave back, right? So he funded the new waterworks, he financed the sewer system, he built the post office, he contributed $250,000 to build Borough Hall, among a lot of other things. It's widely speculated that during the Great Depression, he anonymously paid off grocery store bills for townspeople. That was his way. Margaret She was extremely devoted to the library, the small little Bristol Free Library that was here. In fact, she convinced Joe to, buy that little property and build that little building. But she also, not only did she donate funds to the library, she bought books, but she would have the driver take her into Philadelphia to buy books. She would have him take her up to New York. It was important for her that Bristolians had the latest publications to have access to that, right? So she really did take that seriously. It was important for her. She loved reading, she loved books, and she wanted to make sure that Bristolians had access to that. And she was involved in other areas. She was involved in the Bucks County Historical Society. They were involved in the reconstruction of Pensbury Manor. She was on the furniture buying committee. They were both involved in their ways in their support of this community. And, we take that legacy forward, right? It was Joe's generosity and his foresight and his wisdom that led to the creation of the foundation through his will. And so that's why we're here, right? He planned that out. It took him, I don't know, how many iterations of the will were there? Like 19, John? Yeah, there were
at least 5 or more.
At least 5 or more iterations. He went through that very, very carefully. He had very specific plans for the library. They had drawings and plans. Like, he went through that before his death. Like, he knew what he wanted. And so, we take that, we carry that forward to this day. We take that very seriously, and that generosity, that spirit, that wanting to do good for this community, wanting to give back. So, but as you pointed out earlier, Anthony, he wanted to turn the house into a museum, but name it after his sister, right? And then to build a library in her honor, right? Because she kept the Bristol Free Library going for so many years. And so, he wanted both of those institutions to be named in her honor. And so here we are 60 years later. The library opened in 66, the museum opened in 67. So we will have this year's celebration, and then we'll repeat it again next year for the museum. But here we're going 60 years later, still going strong.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, first off, it's my favorite library. I did a lot of classes there in the summertime, stuff like that. I probably still have a fine there. We've stopped there for when you guys are selling books. We buy iterations of it. And you were talking about how Grundy, he did so much for the town, which a lot of people didn't realize. But at the same time, what is one of the misconceptions that you've found that the foundation, that people feel of the foundation? Do you anything that kind of that something that they should do or not do, or that they label it as?
Well, it's interesting that you ask that. We are in the middle of strategic planning, and we have done community surveys. We're doing key stakeholder interviews. We're about to start focus groups. So our job has been to ask questions and listen right now, and we're so grateful that people are willing to share their thoughts with us. And I think, people really love the library. I think people who've been to the museum love the museum, but there are people like yourselves who know it's here and haven't been there. And I think that's a little bit part of the, oh yeah, I live near the beach, but I just don't go to the beach, right? That happens. You live near an attraction, you just don't take advantage of it, right?
Yes.
And that's our job. How do we help you overcome that? How do we show you and share with you what might interest you about what we do? So that's our challenge, and we'll take that on. And I think when it comes to the foundation, I do think it's more of not understanding what the foundation does, not understanding, that there isn't even a foundation. Some people aren't even aware. They know the library and the museum exist, but they weren't even aware. Some people just don't understand the structure or understood that there was a foundation that oversees all of that. So a lot of it is just about sharing what we do and how it works, and communicating with the townspeople to help them understand what we do, and share all the wonderful things that happen here, including, since 1961, the foundation has, awarded over $36 million in grants. And people aren't aware of that. That's partly our own modesty, right? The foundation has taken a very humble approach to its grant making, but I think you see that in the feedback that we get. People don't understand what the impact the foundation has had on this community, and I think it's important that we start sharing that information, that people understand all the wonderful things that this foundation has done, and I hope we can sort of change that perception a little bit.
It's like a campaign.
I like to think of it also, just as a sidebar, that for example, when I give tours, and we're upstairs and we have the portrait of Joe up on the second floor, I kind of stop and I give homage and I give thanks to Joe, to his portrait. And I would like to say that one of my goals is to do him proud, all right? From every aspect, to do him proud as far as this is what he set out, this is where he put his money, and now it's up to us to reflect that and lead by example. To lead by example. And I just think for his philanthropy and his caring for the town, and also I think he would be pleased, I'd like to think he would be pleased with the amount of attention that the museum in particular has gotten on a broader scale.
Yeah.
And the pride that we have in him and his family. So it's all about, it's Joe, you know?
Yeah. John, do you think that, I mean, what is the one thing that excites you the most about the museum? You've been doing it for so long. You have a sense of pride. Again, you want to do Joseph justice with his dream.
Absolutely.
What is something that excites you the most about the museum?
One of the things that excites me very much, and it's a little bit of a measure as to when a new person may come into the office, a staff person, and I would like to see within a certain amount of time that I can perceive that they have fallen in love with the museum and the family and the story and the mission, that they're not just there getting a paycheck, they're not just there on the periphery, that I just love the place. What can I tell you? I just love the whole. I'm not trying to be a company person, but I'm sincere. So that's what excites me. This falling in love.
Yeah, I don't.
Falling in love with it, but all the other things excite me too. Just that our numbers, our attendance has gone up, our bus tours have gone up, our activities have gone up. Personally, I don't think that Joe Grundy in 1961 ever could have envisioned what this foundation, what his sister's library, and what that family house is doing. He could not have conceived of that 67 years ago, or 66, whatever it is. So that's what we want to do. We want to put it on the map. And we're in a position too where, of course, the library serves the direct community, but Jamie and I have discussed this so often. The museum has a whole different arc and a different radius, right? We want to be known on this national level as a premier Victorian, late 19th century house museum, and we want to honor what Joe Grundy wrote in his will, and that was, name it after my sister, and preserve it, keep it, present it as how it was when we all lived there. And that would have included his father, who lived up until 1893 when he died in the house. So that's been the MO.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
John, first off, no one can question your sincerity for the love of the museum. That's for darn sure. And you are an expert. You're published and know knowledge of Victorian homes and the antiques and everything more than most people. I mean, your works have been around. Is there something with the new exhibits that you feel like this is something that people should know for those that have come to the museum and haven't come back?
Well, right now, our big thing, of course, is America 250. And our big contribution, besides all the red, white, and blue bunting, is that what do we want people to... Trust me, I was hanging it in 95-degree weather. Fine. But
come on, Jamie.
what we want people to take away particularly when they come through that house, that this was a house created by immigrants. This was a company created by immigrants. This is a country created by immigrants. And when you come to our exhibit up in the Walnut Grove room, I didn't say if there, Anthony, I said when.
I will.
Right? All right, and you
promise.
have to do this within
I'm
this
going to bring my
year.
boys.
Yes, you bring them. I'll give you one heck of a tour.
I
But
can't wait.
anyway, when they go through that exhibit, which traces old grandfather, old Mr. Grundy, we have his naturalization paper from 1828,
That's awesome.
right? They kept everything. That is how proud they were to be in this country and to be Americans. And they all were immigrants.
One thing I just want to quickly note about what John just said, keeping everything. One of the things that makes this museum so unique is that about 90% of our collection all belong to the Grundy family.
Right.
So that's highly unusual, right? The house gets sold, the belonging gets sold off, and then later it becomes a museum, and then that museum tries to reacquire the furniture and so on and so forth. That didn't happen here. Joe knew right from the get-go that he wanted this to be turned into a museum, and they did save everything. So we can tell you that this piece was purchased on this date and how much they paid for it, because we have the receipt, because they kept the receipt. Right? So we have all that provenance. We have a huge collection of documentation that the family kept. So that's really unique and special about what we can bring to the table.
It is so separate and apart from so many house museums. I just went to one in Berwick, this big mansion. Long story short, it was all through the 20th century. It was the city hall. So it was stripped of everything. There wasn't anything remotely from the family. They had to recreate everything, every stick of furniture, everything. We have it. It's right there on Radcliffe Street. And as Jamie said, you go in there and you see this wonderful walking suit that Margaret wore, and there it is, 1897. It was purchased in Paris at the Redfern establishment for 600 francs.
Wow.
There it is.
Yep.
And that's just one outfit, one garment.
And one of many, many stories like that.
For goodness sake, we have Joe's his pamphlet when he bought his hearing aid. We have his hearing aid batteries. We have his cigars in a humidor that have never been opened.
Oh, that's cool.
It's so cool. It's just amazing.
John, will you touch on the engraving in the drawing room? That's a special piece for this year.
It is a very special piece. What we've been doing over the past 8 years since I've been there is that we've been having this archaeological dig, because so many things were relegated to the third floor, all right? And the third floor is our really big, tangible archival area. But we have a separate archival area for all the ephemera. That's separate and apart. So we're up there, and there are all these big pieces of artwork in this room, and there it is. It's this wonderful engraving of Benjamin Franklin in France at the court, the French court. And he's surrounded by women, which is no surprise by all reports, and they're placing a laurel wreath on his head. How does this tie into our 250 years? You know for a fact, anyone who was anyone in 1876, when this nation turned 100, you would purchase such things, so that when you came into your house, someone came to your house, they would know that you were very sensitive to the 100 years of this nation. And it's great. It's a fantastic, and it has not been seen by the public.
Yeah. So we've had it restored
Yep.
and it looks fantastic. And this is the first time it's been seen. It's been out for public viewing. It's in the drawing room, and it's really fantastic. Yeah,
That's
yeah.
awesome. We'll get back to the podcast in just a second, but I just wanted to tell you about what I do. I've been a licensed realtor in Bucks County for the past 20 years. I serve Bucks County, Montgomery County, Philadelphia, New Jersey, all over the place. And I also have helped out hundreds of families buy, sell, and invest in real estate. So if that's something that you're interested in doing, don't hesitate to call me. Reach out, DM me, whatever you need to do, and let's start working together. All right, now we'll be back to the podcast.
Yeah.
Jamie, I wanted to talk to you real quick. You mentioned before about how much the foundation gives, and that a lot of people don't know about it. Is there one particular moment or partnership that you've seen that has really transformed an organization?
Well, I think, certainly the relationship with the theater is really important. It's important to us, but I think it's vitally important to Bristol Borough. 40 years this year, 40 years of bringing that many audiences to town, 40 years of those people dining in restaurants, 40 years of great theater, that's important. But it's over 3,100 grants to over 600 organizations. So it's a vast number of organizations and grants that we've given. A lot of support to the borough, to local hospitals. We paved the Mill Street parking lot in 1970. When it was part of the basin, right before it was nothing, right? It was part of where the canal came in. We helped pay for Grundy Towers, renovating borough police department, fire departments, a lot to the school district, community and cultural organizations. I think the vast diversity of our grant making is pretty spectacular, and so there's been a significant investment in our community over the past 65 years.
Nice. What makes it Bristol and Bucks County so important to invest in?
Oh my goodness.
I know it's a tough
It goes
question.
back to Joe, right? I mean,
Yeah.
this is where he made his money, and so he put his money back into this community, right? It was very important to him. We were just talking earlier today, right? He would bring teachers, to teach, the kids of the families working there, right? He that was important. Like, he took care of his own, and
Right.
that was very important to him. And he, in little ways and big ways, and like I said earlier, and sometimes anonymously, right? He didn't always do it to take credit. And so it was his home. He loved it. And his quote, he was brought up the old-fashioned way, with the old-fashioned idea of doing right. That was very important to him, to do right. For him, doing right was, investing here in Bristol Borough. And so we carried that forward. We, of course, have the foundation, has expanded wider than that in across Lower Bucks, but our main focus has been here in Bristol Borough.
That's awesome.
And
John.
we,
Good.
part of our mission, well, I'll speak for myself. Part of my mission, since you talk about the theater and theatrical things, there's always a follow spot in a theater. And I would like to take that follow spot that's put on Bucks County and shift it a bit more from upriver and northern Bucks County, and let's get a nice pink, beautiful follow spot on Bristol and
Yes.
lower Bucks County.
Absolutely.
Because I know we run into it all the time. They talk about, well, New Hope, the epicenter of art and culture, and well, guess what? It's in lower Bucks County too.
That's right.
And we are well
Right.
represented, particularly in our museum, our architecture, our collections, everything that we have. You want to see the arts? Hey, we'll give you a tour of the arts.
Mm-hmm.
You just come around. We're going to show you a lot of art. And the thing is, we have, speaking of fine art, I don't know of any other Victorian house museum around here that has that many classic family portraits, by the way. They're all over.
And
Yes.
I'm going to just comment on one of those portraits because it's one of my favorite objects in the museum. And actually, it's Joe's uncle who he was named after. And as John said earlier, they were Quakers. And of course, Quakers don't believe in violence, right? And so during the Civil War, I think it was the second time that Lincoln called up for troops. And so Joseph, this is Mary's brother.
1862.
In 1862, he decided to join the Union Army and fight.
Wow.
And so think about how unusual that was for a Quaker to do that. And so sadly, he died, I think about 4 months later.
He did not September, October. He died in December. Yes.
Yes, so he did not fight for very long. Mary was pregnant at the time with Joe, and so decided that she would name him after her uncle. And if you look at that portrait that hangs in the study, he's in his Union, his blue, right, his blue uniform, and just it's a spectacular painting. The look on his face, his eyes,
Yes.
just speaks volumes to what was his thought of going against his religion to fight for his country. And so these are the kind of people we talk about, right? This is the legacy that we carry forward. I want to go back to a second to your question about what's the most important sort of investment. I think we have to say, right, the most important investment that the foundation has made is in the library and the museum, right? That is, the bulk of our resources go to that. Mm-hmm. And we spent a lot talking about the museum. I do think it's important to touch a little bit on the library. We think it's the most beautiful library in Bucks County. It certainly has the most beautiful view, probably of any library, at least, in Pennsylvania, maybe. But, we have so many terrific programs. Because of the resources we're able to provide, we are able to do things that a lot of other libraries, unfortunately can't do. And we are very fortunate that we can do that. We have special collections. We have a nonprofit resource center. We have career resources. We house the visitor center for Bristol Borough. So we have all kinds of resources. We have a great online e-resource center. We just refurbished our children's area, which the kids
awesome.
love. One of the great things I love is our collection of things. And that is a really wonderful collection. And so that collection are things like musical instruments, tools, right? A big movie screen, right? And a projector. Those kind of things were like, I need this once or twice. I don't really want to buy it. Well, you can check it out from the library, use it, and return it, right? Those kinds of things that are really helpful. And so we have calculated the overall cost savings to our community for everything that we provide. Books that you take out, DVDs, the collection of things. We have a museum pass program where you can check out a museum pass and go to any number of museums in the area. So last year we saved the community almost $900,000.
Wow.
For all that we offer.
That's
right.
Awesome.
So that's part of what we give to this community by providing this library is also providing all of those services for free and all of that savings for free. Another important thing that we provide is our archives, and a lot of people don't know about the Grundy archives. Have you ever heard of the Grundy archives, Anthony?
I have, yes, I have.
Okay, good. Great.
There's a quiz later, but I do know this one, yes.
So it's of course has the Grundy family collection, right? But we have been collecting the history of Bristol pretty much since day one, since the library opened. We have the Bristol Cultural Historical Foundation's history collection, and we have all sorts of donations from community members from the last 60 years. We serve as custodian for the Bristol Borough Municipal Records Collection. So we have Bristol Borough meeting minutes going back to 1730. And so we have all of that huge collection that we take care of and steward, and a lot of it is available online that you can go and search yourself. One of the most popular pieces of that collection is the Bristol High School yearbooks. Everybody
really
wants to come check out check for their yearbooks, so that's a very popular. But we do have a lot of very important historical collections. So we have the Fleet Wings collection, which was the airplane manufacturer. We have a lot of drawings and a lot of other materials that we get a lot of scholarly requests for. And so we serve, the archive serves a very important function, both locally for genealogy purposes, but also for academic purposes.
That's awesome.
So that's another important function that we provide to the community.
I'm definitely going to come in just to check out my parents' yearbook. Bristol High, 1970. If they're watching, they're going to laugh at me. But also, now, the minutes, that's pretty interesting. Like
It
the
is.
1700s, did they...
Yes, borough council minutes going way, way back, right? Isn't
Did
that
they
great?
complain about the street sweeper then too? Or is that what's going on?
Yeah, he might have been a little bit, might have taken him, there were fewer streets, but still, it might have taken him a little bit longer doing it manually.
Move your cart on
Yeah,
Thursdays and Fridays.
move your horse and carriage.
Yeah, exactly.
Sweeping up a few little different organic material, let's
Yeah,
call it.
exactly. That's funny. Now, in 20 years, I mean, again, Gene helmed this for over 20 years.
He did.
Now, that was a different approach back then. What do you see as your approach now for the next 5 to 10 to 20 years, God willing, 30 years, make you work forever? What is your approach moving forward? Because, again, big shoes to fill with the foundation, the museum, the library. That was 20 years of getting it back, restoring it, new projects. What do you see next?
To really embed ourselves more deeply in the community, to really serve as a partner with the community, to really, again, this part of the strategic planning process that we're going through is to really listen and understand the needs of our community. I think one of the reasons our library is so successful is because they really do listen and pivot accordingly to the needs of our community, and that's something that the rest of the organization is learning from. And that's really important to a successful plan, strategic plan, but it's also important to the success of the foundation and the museum to really make sure that we're serving everyone's needs. And so we want to make sure that we're playing that partner. And we can do that in a lot of different ways. We can provide resources in a lot of different ways, not just grant making, but we can be a partner in many different ways. And so I want to sort of expand the role of the foundation. And as I said earlier, one, help everyone understand the impact that the foundation has had, and two, then sort of change the perception about how we can serve this community.
Particularly about the library, and I even mentioned it today at our meeting, was it's serving the community, the library now I'm talking about in particular, but it also celebrates the community. There is a celebration of everyone within this community. So I know diversity at this point can be an overused word, but you know what? We can't use it enough. And that library, they don't miss a mark. They hit every point. So I just wanted to add that.
Yeah. Well, Bristol's always been diverse. I think that, growing up, I think it's growing up in Bristol Borough was always, you were just from Bristol. It wasn't one way or other. I think that's in our community. Again, I moved out of town, but I still have family still there. I think it's just something that's a little different than a lot of what we see in the world. But, and then neighbors, we learn from each other and all this. We are diverse. We accept each other. What is one thing that you two have learned from each other in these roles?
Well, that when it boils right down to it, our goals and our values are right there.
You stole my answer. I was literally thinking the same thing.
You guys are a good team. That's why.
Yeah. So I think we come from a different perspective, but then when we get to the heart of it, we're actually very much aligned, and that's great because we're on the same path ultimately, that's what makes it work.
It takes. The old line, 2 engines can pull a train much faster than one. And we have more than 2 engines. So we have a lot of engines pulling this train. And that's why we want to go fast forward, so to speak, into our future our future goals and aspirations.
Nice. Stepping away from the foundation and the museum, what's one place that people should also visit in Bristol Borough? What's another one stop that you think that should be part of the tour before going to the museum, going to the library? Where else do you think in town?
I can only tell you from the number of people that I have taken to Bristol, that I have driven to Bristol, that as soon as we make that turn onto Mill Street, people from all walks of life say to me, "Oh my God, this is so charming. I had no idea this was here." And I go, "Well, now you do know," and help us do something about it. But it's that whole Main Street USA, here it is. It's as American as apple pie.
I would say the new donut shop.
I
Right?
have to get
Buddy's
there.
little
Yeah,
friend.
I want to go try that. Yeah.
The donuts are fantastic.
Are they good?
So highly recommend that. Calm Waters Coffee is always a good place to stop for good coffee. The restaurant scene is really getting very strong.
Yes.
Between the classic King George, we've got Jules, Eatery, Drift, the Cantina on the corner. You've got Caesars.
All places I used to work back in the day. So
The restaurant scene is really coming together. There's just so many great things happening in Bristol. It's hard to point to any one thing, but if you're a donut lover, you better be there at 7 a.m.
Oh yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to miss out.
All right. I'll take the boys down this week before it gets hot. Take the boys down for a donut, and then take them to the library. Again, that's what I like in the summertime when I was young. My dad drive us down to the library, then we'd go out, get a drink, on the water and just look at the water and the water fountains out there and just relax and read books and play around. That's awesome. And Jamie, you didn't mention one place on Mill Street. I just want to let you know. There was just we'll save that for another time. But
There's a little flower shop there.
Yeah, a little flower shop there. So
pretty good.
Jamie's husband, Jimmy, owns Birds of Paradise.
Right.
It was been a friend of mine forever.
Yes.
My dad had a store on Mill Street, so he taught at the school of Mill Street, and he talks about how diverse it is and how you learn so much from Mill Street. And again, it's not corporate.
Well, and Jimmy could really speak to the change in Mill Street. His shop has been there for 14 years, and there's been a transformation that's just been fantastic.
Yeah.
Papa's Pretzels. We'll give a shout out to Papa's Pretzels. Thank you for the pretzels for the library's summer reading kickoff on Friday.
Yeah.
We certainly appreciate their support. That was great.
We lost John, but one last thing before we go.
Sure. Yes.
If you had to describe Bristol, the foundation, the museum, everything, one word, what would you say?
Oh God. Oh, okay. One word for all of that. Bristol.
How about one word for the museum, one word for the library, one word for the foundation, one word for Bristol? Put you on the spot.
All right.
Listen, you knew this was coming.
So it's so funny because we just did a bunch of wordsmithing this morning around mission for the library.
I'd say the library is iconic because
Okay.
I think again it's
Okay.
one of the best looking libraries. And then again, I go to the Yardley Library. I've gone. The Fallsington Library is very nice. Marsden
Yeah.
Library is very historic as well, but
Yeah.
iconic.
I'm gonna say service because that's what we're here to do. I think that's for all three, right? We're here to serve, right? The library, and we serve in different ways, but all three of us are here to serve. So I'm gonna say that for Grundy, it's to serve.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
One more bonus question.
Okay.
What would you think if Joseph and Margaret were walking around? What do you think their word
Oh my
would be?
gosh.
Again, this is it.
But I do, it's so interesting that you say that because I do think about
Yeah.
how could he have predicted, the rise of strip malls and malls, and the fact that, Main Street USA would collapse, right? Would he have seen? He couldn't have foreseen that would he have known that could have happened, right? And so I just think, wow, would he have known? And I often, when we go out back here on the riverfront and we talk about our sycamore trees, which are 300 years old, right? And then you have to think like, well, all that they have witnessed over 300 years, right? So that's where my mind goes when you ask questions like that. I think, what would they say? I think they would probably say, I will say this. I hope that they would say thank you.
Yeah.
I would hope that they would say thank you for carrying on our legacy.
Well, I think so. I really do think so. And in regards to sycamore trees, they probably saw me wipe out on my bike down the ramp. When I was 13 and getting yelled at,
Well, hey, did you fall in the river?
No, I didn't fall in the river because the wrought iron fence was there that broke my fall. But no, I mean, listen.
It is a steep ramp.
Yeah, it is.
It is a
I
pretty
was
steep
stupid.
ramp.
That was the things back in the day. But I want to thank you and John. Again, we lost John in this connection, but thank you so much for coming on. The Grundy Foundation, everything is a gem that a lot of people don't know about, and a lot of people miss. Even Bristol Borough people, that live there all our lives and not going. And I think this is a perfect opportunity to show them what they're missing.
Yes.
And again, you're going to have another celebration next year for the library, correct?
For the museum, yeah.
Oh, for the museum next year. The library was
yeah.
this year.
Yeah. 65th anniversary this year for the foundation,
Nice.
60th anniversary this year for the library, and then next year 60th. I know it's like too much.
It's a ton
to
of
keep
parties.
track.
Yeah. That's a
Thank
lot
you so much for inviting us to be on your podcast. We really appreciate it, and thank you for helping spread the word.
Jamie, thank you so much. And guys, make sure you share the podcast. Check out the Grundy Foundation.
Absolutely.
Check everything out, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.
All right. Take care.
Thanks for joining the podcast today. If you want to hear more, click the link below and check out our other episodes. If you're looking to be on the podcast, feel free to reach out to me, DM me, whatever you need to do. I'd love to hear your voice. I'd love to share your stories. Have a good one.